VLPSos here. This is a video lesson for Python programming. Better bootstraps. Pause to practice when you need to. Always import stuff first at the top of your code file. That way the functions that you import can be used by the entire file and it's clear what modules the program is dependent on. Especially helpful when you collaborate with others on large projects. An example of importing, import math. If we save and run, notice that our program that we're writing didn't do anything. Now, that's a good thing because when we imported, we wanted to get the functions that were defined in the math module and have access to those functions. What didn't happen, which is good, is that the math module when importing didn't run anything. Nothing was executed. We didn't see anything in the output. When you import, the file is actually run, but that's a problem because you want to have access to the program and its functions, but usually not have it do anything until we're ready. The point of importing into a program that you're currently writing is to be able to use the functions that it contains so that you don't have to rewrite them. But you typically, when importing, don't want the file that you're importing to do anything, to run in a way and interact with the user that you haven't controlled and included in your program. I have prepared two files that I wrote to highlight the difference between importing in a way that we wish and importing in a way that is problematic. The first is the problematic file. I wrote a program called CPO3 project PyTool unstrapped. Notice that I don't have any spaces in my file name. If I wanted to use different words in the file name, then I separated them by underscores. You can't import a file that has spaces in the name. But if we import this file that I prepared, which was a previous project, and I run my program now, I've imported math, but then I imported this PyTool unstrapped. And something automatically ran. It ran because the file that I wrote was designed to be run to be a Pythagorean leg finder. And I'm forced to use the program when I imported it. That is typically undesirable. And we can make a print statement. Content of this file so that we can see when we run the program will come from printing the directory function of this file. So now when I run my program, the import math isn't going to notice to have done anything. The user is not going to in any way experience that the math module got imported, which is good, but we'll still have access to the functions in math. When I import this file, it will automatically run the contents of the file. It will also include the functions that I wanted to have access when I imported it. It will print the directory of that file as well. Let's see. Here is the execution of the file. Here is the print statement to tell us the content of the PyTool, which includes some special variables with the double underscores. It also includes 4 values that are defined in the namespace of the file that I just imported. Hype, leg, and leg2 are variables that program uses to do a calculation and leg finder is the name of the function that was defined in order to perform the calculation. So I can see in the directory the content of what I imported. I didn't want the program to run, I just wanted access to the leg finder function inside of it. But I got more than I wanted. We'll make a note. We wanted access to the leg finder function, but we got the whole program to run instead. And there is a way to avoid this. We have to get in the habit of writing everything inside of functions so that nothing runs without first calling a function. The math module is written in that way. The math module has no lines of code that execute that are a part of the main program. The math module, like any module that is written to be imported and help us in Python programming, has all of its code defined inside functions. So when you import those modules, you get access to those functions without anything executing. Now, I have written a version of my PyTool program that has done that. It's got a different name because it's a different file, and that name is cpo3_pytool example. If I run this, we will also have a print line to show us where in running this program this import will happen. I've got a new line and I'm printing note nothing ran automatically this time. Well, at least we hope. Let's confirm. So this first execution is the import of the unstrapped version that I am forced to use. Then it printed the contents of the unstrapped version, which we've seen before. Then there's a new line and the print statement that nothing ran automatically this time. So the second import, the one that is titled with the example, seemingly did nothing to the user's perspective. That's a good thing. But what we want is we want to have access to that function inside of that program that we just imported. It didn't do anything automatically, but the reason why we wanted to import it is to have access to this leg finder function. And notice that the variables that are in the namespace of the unstrapped version are not in the namespace or the directory of this new import. There's only two things that are not double underscored special variables: hello and leg finder. These are both functions. Everything else in this file is inside those functions. Now I have access to those functions, and I didn't have to see or deal with anything else being run. We'll make a note. Note the difference in the two programs' namespace, as I just highlighted. In the second import, we can't see variables because they are defined inside the functions, and we can see only two functions. It was the hello and leg finder function. The rest that have double underscores are special variables named in a way that are critical to Python's basic functionality. And what those are and what they mean is a topic for a more advanced lesson. So how do we access the function that we just imported? Or how do we access actually running that program if we wanted to? Well, we're going to call a function inside. There are only two functions, hello and the PyTool. So if we wanted to experience the program, then we call the function hello that was prepared when I wrote the program, and we do so with the convention of using the name of the module first, with a dot and then the hello function. When we do, we can confirm here is the first import. Well, I have to wait for it to execute. Here's the first import, and then the second import is running this module again. That's when we had control by starting the program by executing the hello function written inside of it. And we can use the function again and see it end. We now have access to the module's functions in this second style of importing. The above line calls the function that moves the program along, and that's the hello function. The name hello was chosen by me. It doesn't have to have that name. Hello was a personal choice reflecting my first programming experiences with BASIC on an Apple II in the early 80s. But if all code is inside functions, another problem arises. What happens when you run a file that is all function definitions? Nothing. If we had the math module here on a screen and we pressed F5 or ran it, the user would experience nothing. So we need to bootstrap our programs. We need a little bit of code that will kick off the rest of the program if it's run, but won't make things go if it was just imported. In other words, we have a problem either way, and we need a way to resolve it. We can either write programs that can be imported and do nothing until the programmer wishes to access them, or we can write programs that if we press F5 or ran them from a menu, then go. We want to be able to write a program that can respond as an import file and just run as if it was a program in and of itself. So how do we do that? We have a way of what's called bootstrapping. And to prepare for this, an example of it working, we're going to define a function. Imagine that this function was inside your program, and it could do anything we want, but for this example, it's simply going to print this function must have been called by the bootstrap. Now, if I run my program now, I wouldn't see this line of code being executed. It's inside a function, and I haven't called the function. But I'm going to call this function with a bootstrap. If double underscore name double underscore is equal to the string double underscore main double underscore, then call the bootstrap function. If we run our program, even though the bootstrap function is a function and inside of it this print line, we have this print line, this condition will be true, will evaluate true, if I press F5 or chose run from the menu. And if I run my program and that makes this condition true, then the code block under that condition, which includes a call to bootstrap, will be executed. However, if I imported this program, this condition would be false. So if I ran this program, this code block would not execute, which means the bootstrap wouldn't be called. Which is good, because if I import, I don't want my functions to automatically run. But if I want to run this program in and of itself, I do. This is the bootstrap that makes it possible to do both. And I can run my program, observe the imports from the past, and deal with the fact that I have an error because I forgot the R in Bootstrap. Let's try that again. Previous imports. And now we can see the evidence of this print line being executed. This function must have been called by the Bootstrap. Let's provide a little comments to remind us what I have just talked about. Python has an internal name for every file. A file that is run directly, not imported, will be called main. Again, double underscores are Python's way of keeping track of important variables. And so if this important variable double underscore main, that variable takes on the value of the program that it is currently running. In other words, if I choose run, then the name of this program, Better Bootstrap's VLP, will be the variable main, and therefore evaluate this condition to be true. The simple way to think of it is, this is a way of checking whether you want to run this program. The value of main and name will evaluate to be false if this program is not being run. It's just a part of another one because the other one is importing it. And a note, the above condition means essentially this. If this file is being run, then do the code block that's supplied with it, which can be anything you wish. And what will happen, if that is true, is contained in the code block, which is the place to call the function that will start everything in motion. Instead of the Bootstrap function that we've chosen to be the code block here, many programmers prefer their first function calls that start everything going to be go, or start, or main, or menu, or in my case, hello. Get into the habit of writing programs that need to be bootstrapped and start using it. And need to be bootstrapped essentially means put every line of code inside a function and choose one function name that will control and run the rest of your program. Put Bootstrap at the bottom of your code so all functions are defined before you get to it. So this being your Bootstrap should be the last line of code in your file, and then of course including the code block that goes with it. Now you start the habit. Write a program that prints hello world, but only if you run it, not if it's imported. And you can test to see if your program is working if you have a second file that imports the hello world file that you wrote, to test it in that way. Have fun.